You've got to stand for something or you'll fall for anything. You've got to be your own man, not a puppet on a string. Never compromise what's right and uphold your family name. You've got to stand for something or you'll fall for anything.
Welcome and let's think. Today we are going to talk about values. And by the way, welcome to our first show ever on the Let's Think show. Welcome aboard. Bear with me. I haven't done this before. By the way, I say that just to establish credibility. I understand that's very important when you meet someone for the first time. But hello, I am Shepard. I'm a voluntarist, and I seek truth. I like smart people. I'm hoping that you are. If you're not, and you don't really care about this kind of stuff, philosophy and values, morality, that kind of thing, then maybe you'd prefer to watch sports ball or something instead of listening to this. But for the smart people out there who enjoy philosophy and that kind of thing, you're my tribe. I love you. Welcome. I hope that we can help illuminate the path for each other and make our worlds a better place. So today we are talking about values. What do you value? And first, I guess we should look at the word values and to figure out what we mean by that. What I mean by that is a thing that we value. And so it could be, I would imagine there are thousands of values out there. Ice cream, that could be a value. I value ice cream, especially the correct flavor. Not that stupid stuff with that fake cherry flavor, that's ridiculous. But the good ice cream, the caramel latte kind of ice cream, or that I value, I think is just a wonderful thing. Now, there are also values that exist. We can call something a value even if we don't like it, if I don't like it. So we'll use the obvious example of patchouli oil. I hate patchouli oil. That scent stinks. I can't stand it. But if somebody said, I value patchouli oil, I'd have to say, hey, I recognize that you value it, and I think that stuff really stinks, and I'm going to stay away from you when you're wearing it, or plug my nose up or something like that. But that value, patchouli oil, or that other value, ice cream, they're both things that some people value, but I don't necessarily. And that is, I guess, one of the first things I look at when I look at a philosophic item or an actual physical item, a collection of atoms like ice cream or a patchouli oil. I look at it and say, do I really care about this? Do I really value even the concept enough to keep looking at it, or this thing enough? And there are some things I really just don't care about. Photosynthesis is a great example of one of the things I really don't care about. It just doesn't interest me at all. So while one person might have photosynthesis as their life's work, and they think about it when they get up and when they go to bed, they're thinking about it as they go to sleep, and photosynthesis is everything. And we ask that person, what are your top 5 values? They might say a deeper understanding of photosynthesis. Well, I would say, hey, I stutter when I say the word, and I really don't care about green plants, how they get green or any of that stuff. I just don't care. So first, that's kind of my first test is, do I even care about this thing? And then if I do, then I look at it and say, well, is it a good thing or a bad thing? Well, ice cream is obviously a good thing. Patchouli oil is obviously a bad thing. And then there are some things that I'm just indifferent about. Then once I've identified if it is a good thing or a bad thing, I can also look at it on an intensity scale. Is it a really, really, really bad thing? Like, I would say that meth is pretty bad. Maybe it's not as bad as patchouli oil. Maybe patchouli oil would be a worse thing than meth. Maybe not. If you've had someone that you love affected by it, maybe not. But we kind of have a scale of things. I love ice cream, but I don't love it as much as I love my wife. So I would put it on a lower intensity level on my scale. So we have an intensity level. We have good versus bad. Do we have the whole part of, do we give a darn? And that is kind of how I like to look at various values and analyze them. And that is definitely not a scientific psychobabble way to look at it. I've kind of simplified it, but that's kind of, I like the KISS principle. I like to keep it simple. And for my mind, that's what works best, is just kind of a basic common sense examination of something. So let's look at a couple other values. And now we're moving away from things like ice cream and how much I love my wife and how much I hate patchouli oil. Let's look at some values that have more to do with philosophy. Humans are born free. That would be one value that some people might have. They might say that's a truism, or that concept is something they value. And by the way, I happen to be one of those people. Now here's another value, and this is opposite. Humans are born with a debt to society. Now it's an opposite value from the one I hold. But as you'll notice with all of my shows, it ain't about what I think. It's about what you think. It's about what you decide after carefully analyzing all the stuff. What is it that's important to you? What do you believe? What do you think? So if we're using this example of humans are born free, or they're born with a debt to society, to the commune, well, which do you hold? And depending on which one you hold, you are going to approach specific issues in life very differently than a person that holds the opposite value. So let's look at this idea of humans are born with a debt to society. We'll just kind of go off on a little tangent here to examine this. You didn't build this. Society built this, and therefore you owe society, the commune, the community, whatever you want to call it. You owe this collection of people something. Not the individuals within that collection, but the group as a whole. You owe them something. And the kind of the most simple example of this would be a person, a member of the group that has walked along a certain area and has started to beat down a trail. And then as more people walk along this trail, it becomes more and more of a trail. And then years later, when I come along and I want to go for a walk, there's a nice, perfect trail for me to walk on. And so this is the argument that other people have built this, and they have built it for the commune, and therefore you, as part of the commune, if you are going to walk along this same trail, you now owe the commune. Not anything having to do with the trail, but maybe you owe them your invention or your labor or your children's lives or whatever it is. But the commune or the community, the same thing, is more important than the individual. Well, the opposite side of this argument or this value would again be the individual is more important than the group. And by the way, all gang rape victims would agree with me on that. The individual's rights are more important than the group's desires or what they want. The individual is more important. The individual is this sovereign thing in the whole the pot we're looking at here. It is the sovereign ingredient. So if one person has one value and the other has the other, then when we would look at a specific new issue that comes up, gosh, wouldn't it make a difference? If you're trying to have a conversation with someone who believes that humans are born free, and you believe that humans are born with a responsibility to society, those are very different worldviews that you're approaching this issue from. And when you look at this new issue, you and the other person will most certainly come up with a different answer. The other person's going to say something, and you're going to think, how in the world are you thinking that? That is ridiculous. Well, guess what? You two each have different values. And this doesn't mean you need to be enemies, but it sure is smart to recognize it, isn't it? Here's another example. I'm kind of in a little stoicism kick, and I'm interested in learning more about stoicism. And it kind of ties into this last example I just gave. Some of these Stoics, I'm listening to Marcus Aurelius on his audiobook, Meditations. Have you guys read that? It's been recommended to me first time probably 20 years ago, and it's been around for thousands, over 1,000 years. So it's kind of a popular book. But I'm just now getting into it, and I'm realizing I disagree with a lot of what he has to say. And he's saying something to the effect of personal happiness is not a worthy and moral goal to pursue. Well, I don't agree with that. My values at this moment are that that's a wonderful thing to pursue. That's why I do what I do. I want to be happier. And there are other things I also value. There are also other things that I also want to achieve or that I have as goals. Yeah, I do want to make the world a better place. That's why we're having this conversation right now. I want to make the world a better place. But I also believe that personal happiness is a pretty wonderful thing, and it's okay to pursue that. And there's some guidelines, not at any cost, but I think that's a just fine moral thing to pursue. Well, if I was having a conversation with Marcus Aurelius, we would have a disagreement there because we have different values. And if we have those different values, how are we going to get along and wind up in the same place? If we can't agree on a measurement system, if we're speaking a different language in terms of values, how are we ever going to have a good conversation, that we come to a good meeting of the minds where we kind of both get together and say, you know what, you're right. I've thought about what you had to say, and I think I was off base. I think what you were saying was right. And yeah, we need to do blah, 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 or this or that. How are we going to do that if we don't examine what other people have to say and look at things from their worldview? Next up, after the break, let's talk about means versus ends. What is a higher value to us? Some people believe that the ends are so important that the means don't matter as much. Let's just get it done. Let's make it happen. Collateral damage is okay. And other people put all of their value in the journey.